He is Robin Leech. He is Jada Marcken. This is Car Keys.
Yes, it is, and I want to start off by discussing something that came across the news waves. Jay, I know, has seen it. GM is about to unveil an electric vehicle in the $30,000 range. I think it's the Equinox, which as a price in the $30,000 range, which if it starts out at that before you start adding accessories is pretty darn good, before other incentives, sort of turns the pricing situation maybe on its head if other manufacturers see that they're going to have to match a $30,000 offering from one vehicle manufacturer to their own manufacturing plans for electric vehicles. As we have been talking on this show about electric car pricing, most of the electric car pricing, minus maybe Priuses and other introduced vehicles, one by GM, have been closer to $40,000 starting and going up very rapidly into the until you go over the line in six-digit figures for some of the fancy vehicles, way beyond most people's reach. Jay and I have been bantering back and forth about whether or not incentives were needed to be able to sell these cars. Elon Musk is on my side. Probably Jay has enough people on his side to counter me. I don't think they're needed. I think that this is going to be proof if GM can actually produce one at $30,000. You don't need more incentives than that will be possibly be available anyway on these cars to get people to buy electric cars. And judging by the sales figures that are going on electric vehicles, there isn't any need for support, in my opinion, from Congress or anybody else in the government, because everything that's coming off the trucks in most cases is being sold, whether it be a Hyundai, a Kia, a Tesla, Rivian, or beyond. And a friend of mine just recently, who was in a very low-income situation, just recently acquired a 2022 Ioniq 5 SEL version, because that was the only thing the dealer had on the lot that they would even sell to anybody walking in, which is about what he did. Plus, they had a dealer markup of, I think, $4,500 on the vehicle. And I have the sticker, the Mulroney sticker here, and the list price on that vehicle that this guy purchased and financed was $52,560. That ain't cheap, as we say. And, Jay, you want to counter?
Well, I think, electric car prices are going up just like ICE car prices are going up. I think that's no surprise, and I think that's going to keep happening. I'm not shocked by $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 sticker prices. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to buy a vehicle right now. But
right, exactly.
If you look at Jeep's new Recon, which looks really cool, by the way, kind of a Wrangler size, fully electric vehicle, the starting price is $60,000. Yep. And guess what? I'm pretty darn sure they're going to sell quite a few of them. And the Equinox at $30,000 is a base model with not really limited range, because I think it's still in the 250-mile range.
It is,
but it's a two-wheel drive vehicle. The prices go up well into the 40s pretty rapidly, which is still a competitive price. I did mark that vehicle down as being, one of the more affordable electric vehicles, SUVs, that we're going to be seeing in the next few years. And I think it's going to do well. I think GM is going to do well with its range of electric vehicles, even if some of them are way over the $100,000 mark right now. But I think that's like any new technology. It's you start out with expensive vehicles, and then as technology becomes more readily available, costs go down and prices will go down. So I think this is a totally normal trend, and it's not out of whack. As far as the tax credits are concerned, we've always had all sorts of tax credits in the tax code for whatever reason. I mean, pickup trucks have had these last few years huge tax advantages. So there's nothing. It doesn't bother me like I know it does you. But these tax credits are a little complicated, and there are only since the new law just passed, there are only I counted about a dozen vehicles that are actually eligible right now for these new tax credits. And about 75% of the 70-plus vehicles that were eligible for tax credits before the law passed have been axed and are no longer eligible for the tax credit. So, again, it's something to monitor. I didn't go into the details, but I know that starting January 1st, both GM vehicles and Teslas are going to be eligible for tax credits, again, starting in 2023. I don't know why GM is not eligible now, and Ford is with a number of vehicles, but it is what it is. So, again, it's just a complex situation that people need to look into if they're in the market for any.
My only curiosity is, are the tax credits offsetting the discount? Or the price rise? Or
they are the
GM,
discount.
The last couple of years, before the Bolt episode that went up in flames, kind of like that car that went up in flames at that Tesla
in Shanghai
parking garage, it happened to quite a few GM Bolts, and that put a kind of a damper on people's enthusiasm for the car.
That'll do it.
GM was offsetting the tax credit with an incentive of $8,000. I don't know where that stands. Pricing is out for the Bolt, but it should be one of the most affordable, if not the most affordable, electric vehicle with a decent range, something like 260-mile range.
Well, the Bolt may disappear. It was rumored maybe because of the Equinox. I'm not sure whether it will or won't, but you were right. There were great incentives, not tax incentive related, on the Bolt, because you went around searching and you found you could get $8,000 to even more $1,000.
Right. But let's face it, that was then, this is now, and we're now in a market where dealerships, or somehow some people have reported on them, dealerships are making tons of money on vehicles just because inventories and supply chains are problematic. But I think that situation of inventories and pricing is going to start, and gouging is going to start, disappearing. It's going to take another year probably.
Well, as inventory rises above sales, it will do that, because they'll then have to start incentivizing people to buy their cars instead of charging people to buy their cars at the moment.
Yeah.
Because it's still going on in fossil fuel cars. Audi, an Audi dealership has raised their additional dealer markup, which does include a few very inexpensive to them features like window etching and paint protection or something, to $4,500 on some of their models. That same dealership sent out an email saying all of a sudden that A5 SQs, which is this particular model or the Q5, I guess it is, crossover thing, is now $4,850 off manufacturer's suggested retail. So the additional dealer markup seems to have vanished on that, and I noted when I was last there recently that they had quite a stock of these particular models on their lots, and they weren't flying off, at least at the level that they might have been doing before. So these ADMs have been in the automotive industry's tricks to sell for years and decades.
Well, and on the other hand, there are dealerships that are being honest. I know of a few that will not sell above sticker price. Yep. They won't sell under, but they won't sell above, and hopefully people will remember them in the future. I know somebody who just bought for their kid a brand new Subaru. They were in the market for a used Subaru, and they ended up finding a new Subaru for less money than a used car. So things are a little upside down right now.
Correct.
Wait another 6 to 12 months, and things are going to calm down in a big way, I think. But we'll see.
We'll see. Exactly.
I would definitely. I'm going in that direction, Rob. I think we're going to have let's just say a revaluation of things. So.
Well, there's no question, and as far as I'm concerned, that inventories are improving at some dealerships in some ranges of the models of vehicles that they sell. Jay and I both know of a large dealership on 22 going to New York who was woefully short of pickup trucks some months ago. As I go by it now, it's hard to tell between where the new ones are and some of the late model used ones are in relation to what's what there. But I've seen a very big increase in the numbers of pickup trucks new available for buyers to come in and look at. Whether it's what the buyers want or not, that's the dealership's problem.
But the whole business model in the car world is going to be questioned for the next few years. I mean,
yes, it is.
We know that manufacturers would love to get rid of dealers, and it's just not going to happen anytime soon. Selling directly from the manufacturer to the consumer is not legal in most states, and this is the uphill battle that Tesla has been facing in the last few years. Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, just went to dealers, and this kind of makes me laugh. He would like dealers to cut costs by $2,000 and also invest in EV charging stations that could cost up to $500,000 per dealership. So he's going to dealers and asking them to make less money so that he can sell more cars, and the model would be and is to have the inventory of electric cars owned and kept by Ford. So the dealers, just become salespeople in the middle of things, middlemen. And I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, I don't see dealerships going, oh, okay, this is a great idea. So I think this is going to be a battle that goes on has started a few years ago, and it's going to go on for a long while.
All right, well, we will see.
Yeah.
Moving in a slightly forward direction, is there anything that is separate and apart from the exigencies of price? Is there any car out there that makes you drool?
Every morning I go on Bring a Trailer, and every morning I get an email with about 100 cars that go up for auction. And I would say in the 100 cars that I see every day, probably 10 or 20 are very attractive to me, and none of them are new cars. And following last weekends of the Historics Festival at Lime Rock, where we saw over 1,000 show cars on Sunday. It was just an incredible show. It just reminds me that I'm getting older because I'm starting to really appreciate cars that I really liked when I was younger. And unfortunately, that goes back 30, 40 years ago. So I have a thing for cars from the 70s and 80s, and Robin might have a thing for cars in the 30s and 40s.
Thanks a lot, Jay. I'll chime in and saying in New Canaan there's a gasoline station down there which has had two recent examples of my favorite and first car of my life, which was the Ford Bronco original edition, 69 and forward until they raised the size of it to the big Bronco later on in the 70s. And that would be my car of choice if I were looking for an older car over many, if not all, of the new cars that are out there today. Electric's sort of included, but the question in my life is, am I going to buy an electric car before I don't exist anymore? And that is a question that I'm debating within myself. And right now, the answer is no.
Would you buy? Well, you already have a hybrid.
I have a hybrid.
Would you buy
That's
a
the way to go, and Nissan and Toyota are both going to keep those vehicles of all levels of electrified vehicles in their lineups for some time to come, despite the fact that 2035 is deadline for some manufacturers to be out of the fossil fuel car business, and California to be out of the fossil fuel car sales as far as new cars are concerned. So who knows
Jill,
what
back
I'm going
to
to
your
do.
question about new cars that are appealing to me. Yes, there are a few. I think, unfortunately, the cars have become much faster, much bigger, much more powerful. It's kind of become a little ridiculous. I'm trying to find a car that will be my next go-around town car. And
you were on the electric car idea at one point.
Well,
the Bolt
yes,
was
and
one
I'm
of them.
conflicted because now I'm also looking at like a Mazda MX-5. the twin sports cars, the Subaru BRZ or the Toyota GR86. Little 4-cylinder cars with a stick, rear-wheel drive, simple, fun to drive. So yeah, I'm looking for cars
Jay,
like that. And our
I'm ahead of you on that.
What do you mean? Do you have an MX-5?
No, I have an RX-7, which is just exactly the same level of car that Jay is talking about with the MX-5 and the Toyota and the Subaru sisters.
Well, are you sharing?
That's correct, but it is.
No, but I've owned it since
1984.
Right.
And it's
right.
perfect.
It's pretty close, yes. I don't disagree.
Well, it's very funny because the old history begins at the point in time most convenient to the argument. But yeah, there are some cars that are still they had to pry my VW out of my cold hands.
Mm-hmm.
So
it rusted away.
Yeah, because I would have kept it. As far as I was concerned, it just
move
stopped
on.
working.
Jay, what do you have?
Well, safety tip very quickly, and a simple one. It hasn't rained in weeks or months, and all of a sudden we're a lot of rain. Roads are wet.
Greasy.
They are particularly greasy. So if you've been driving on tires that were at the end of the rope, on dry pavement, they're just fine. But now that we are on slippery surface and oily surfaces, be careful, and time to look at tires and decide if you're going to put new tires on, if you're going to go with, all seasons, or if you are going to consider putting snow tires later. This is a little early for snow tires.
I have a recommendation for listeners about that particular topic, in that if you have an all-wheel drive vehicle and you have good all-season 4 or all-season tires on it, you most likely should not expend the money in putting on winter tires. And I'll let Jay countermand that.
I'll counter right away. I don't do it, but all the tire tests show that there is a huge difference between a winter tire and a all-seasons tires.
Correct,
and,
if you drive aggressively, too.
Yes, most likely with an all-season tire, you're going to have enough traction to get through the snow in difficult conditions. But the biggest problem is stopping the vehicle, and whether you have a two-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive, the problem remains the same. And, winter tires are definitely way, way better in that respect. But we're still a bit away from that time, hopefully. Just keep in mind, roads are wet. Dial it back a little bit. Time to check your wipers, too. I know I have to change wipers on at least one of my cars.
Me too. The rubber dries out, and they do not sweep cleanly in many cases in light rain, and do not do a good job. Wipers are probably underappreciated by many drivers. They are very inexpensive in most places. I bought recently 6 pair of wipers for $9.99 $9.99 each to replace on a number of my vehicles, and it sure does make a difference. To the Jay's point about greasy roads, let me tell you, even with good treaded tires, if you are driving in excess of the posted speed levels and you go around certain corners, those tires will give you a slight... When Jay was talking about the greasy roads and having good treaded tires on your car during wet roads is much better than not having tires with treads on them, which may be fine in dry roads. I experienced that exact situation on a road that I was driving between Sharon and my business address in Lakeville, and it has a number of curves in it. And I decided to test that whole greasy concept by stretching the limit of speed to which I should normally go around a corner when it's dry and try it when it's wet. And I did have that slight notification that the greasy roads are ever present on these roads around our northwest corner and many places which have been dry for weeks and then suddenly get rained on them, because they do pick up rubber. Rubber comes off the tires, impregnates into the asphalt, and then when water hits rubber, it becomes grease. And so that is what everybody should know who wants to listen to this kind of advice and drives in a manner which might be deemed to be aggressive in certain weather conditions.
I just have to in our last minute, and then you can knock me down. I just the point of aggressive driving eludes me. It really does. I have been. I don't know if you have driving on 112 through a small town that's always had a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that's before you have to deal with school buses. Okay,
right.
But you can always tell when people are new here, because
well, okay, yes, I don't think we want to digress too much on that particular point. People drive at various speeds. I have learned my most comfortable speeds now between here and New York are 7 miles an hour over the posted speed limits on the two roads that I drive on to go to my destination, and that's 22, which is a 2-lane road. Posted speed, state speed is 55. I do 62 cruise control. I love it. I don't come up behind too many people ahead of me. I don't get pulled up behind me by too many people behind me. And then I get on 684, which is posted at 65, and I go 72. And you know what lane is the fastest in that 3-lane road?
Right lane.
The right lane. It's incredible. It's amazing. I can put it on cruise control in 72 and almost get my entire distance that I'm on that road there without having to pass a car in front of me and or be passed by a car behind. Behind.
All right. So all I wanted to say is I don't think you should try that in Lime Rock.
No.
That was all I was.
You shouldn't try that in Lime Rock.
All I was attempting again to say is be aware of. Or if you don't know, don't immediately assume before trying to pass that the person in front of you is a dotard.
Right, exactly. I agree. Now, I want to go to one thing I read about. We have these super pickup trucks out there. We've got the TRX from Stellantis Jeep or Dodge, and we've got the, the Ford Raptor from Ford. Motor Trend magazine just did a test, had a long-term test on their TRX Dodge pickup, and they got an average over a 98 mile or 58 miles, 5 miles a gallon on that truck. And that's a truck that's got a 600 plus horsepower engine under the hood. Why anybody wants to buy a truck for any reason whatsoever to get as low as 5 miles per gallon if you're driving aggressively, we're back to aggressive driving. They drove it up and down hills, and they did quite a variety of tests. And that truck costs, I believe, in excess of $70-something thousand to buy. And yes, it's tricked out with big tires and all these other things. And it can go from 0 to 60 in, I think, under 4 seconds. But why would gas prices at $6 a gallon, as they noted was in California during the test, to get 5 miles a gallon, and the tank is 35 gallons, the range at a full average 5 miles a gallon is 160-something miles before you have to fill up that 35-gallon tank at $6 a gallon. Do the math on that, and that's over $200. And Jay talked about a little bit about these cars that go amazingly quick, and yes, these high-performance vehicles have been more of them have been brought on by the manufacturers in the last few years, and I've seen it in a long time. But they certainly do eat gas.
And I know it was a rhetorical question, but the only reason to do something like that is because you can.
That's
because
correct.
Money doesn't have.
And it's amazing who seems to own them.
But that's a different story for a different day.
That's a different story. Yeah.
All right. As they say, he is Robin Leech. He is Jada Marcken. This is Car Keys.